Serafina Calloway had never asked for much. She did not ask for attention. She did not ask for praise. She only asked to belong, and even that small wish had always been too much for the world around her. She had grown up inside the Iron Moon Pack, one of the most powerful wolf clans in the northern lands. The pack had grand stone halls, fierce warriors, and a reputation that made other clans lower their eyes. Serafina, however, was not part of that greatness. She was an Omega, the lowest rank in the pack, and she spent her days quietly doing whatever was needed of her. She cleaned, she cooked, she helped wherever she was allowed. She never complained, never argued, and never drew attention to herself. Most people walked past her without a second glance. That was simply her life, and she had accepted it. Then came the blood moon ceremony. It happened once a year, always on the night when the moon hung full and red in the sky. Every wolf in the pack gathered in the great courtyard, standing under the open heavens, waiting. According to their oldest beliefs, the moon goddess used that night to reveal something sacred, the bond between two people who were meant for each other. Not chosen, not arranged, but destined. Serafina had attended the ceremony every year of her adult life and had never felt anything. She always stood near the back, watching others find their bonds, watching the joy and the tears and the embraces, and then she walked home alone. She had begun to wonder if she was simply someone the moon goddess had forgotten. That year, she almost did not go. But something quiet inside her said, "Go." So she went. She stood near the edge of the crowd, wrapped in a simple gray coat, her silver eyes watching the sky. And then, without warning, it happened. A feeling like warm light moved through her chest, deep, certain, and unlike anything she had ever known. Her wolf stirred and then stood completely still, as if the whole world had paused. She turned her head, following the feeling. And she found herself looking directly at Cain Voss. He was the alpha of Iron Moon. He was tall, broad-shouldered, and carried himself with the quiet authority of a man who had never once doubted his own importance. His dark eyes found hers at the exact same moment, and she saw something flicker across his face, something between surprise and discomfort. The crowd noticed. Of course they noticed. A silence spread through the courtyard like a wave. Serafina stood very still. Her heart was beating fast, but she kept her expression calm. She had not asked for this. She had not planned it, but it was real as the ground beneath her feet. Cain looked at her for a long moment. He looked at the crowd. He looked at Alara Vale, the woman standing just to his right, a beautiful, powerful she-wolf from a noble bloodline, already widely understood to be the future Luna of Iron Moon. Ilara's jaw was tight. Her eyes were cold. Then Cain looked back at Serafina, and he made his choice. His voice was calm and clear, and carried across the entire courtyard. He spoke the words of rejection, old words, formal words, the kind that could only be used once, and could not be taken back. He told the crowd, told the elders, told everyone watching, that he did not accept the bond. He did not accept her. Serafina felt the rejection move through her like a blade made of ice. It was not just emotional pain. It was physical, sharp and real, a burning in her chest that made her knees nearly give way. She pressed her hand against her ribs and breathed through it. She did not cry. She did not fall. She stood straight, looked at him one last time, and then lowered her gaze. She did not say a single word. Within 3 days, Cain had her formally banished. The pack elder read the order aloud at the gate. Her pack mark, the small wolf-shaped symbol at the back of her neck that identified every Iron Moon member, was declared void. She was handed a single bag and told she had until dawn to leave the territory. She packed only what she needed. She said goodbye to no one, because there was no one who came to say goodbye to her. She walked to the border in the dark, crossed the boundary line, and kept walking. She did not look back. What no one knew, what she herself had only just begun to understand, was that she was carrying something with her. Something that had started before the ceremony, before the rejection, before any of it. A secret that was growing quietly inside her, waiting for its time. She was going to be a mother. Serafina traveled for several days before she reached Valehaven, a mid-sized city where wolves and humans lived side by side without conflict. It was a neutral place. No pack claimed it. No alpha controlled it. It was the kind of place where a person with no name could start over. She found a small apartment on a quiet street. She found work, first at a bakery, then cleaning offices at night, then as a helper in a small medical clinic. She worked hard and saved every coin she could. She asked for nothing and accepted whatever she earned. 7 months after leaving Iron Moon, in the warmth of a modest apartment while rain tapped softly on the window, Serafina gave birth to twins, a boy and a girl. She named the boy Aiden and the girl Lyra. From the first moment she held them, she knew they were remarkable. Not in the way that all mothers think their children are remarkable, but truly, undeniably different. When they cried, the air in the room seemed to shift. When they opened their eyes, older wolves on the street below would pause mid-step, lift their heads, and look around in confusion, sensing something they could not name. Serafina said nothing to anyone. She simply raised them. She raised them on honesty and love and discipline. She taught them to read early and to think clearly. She taught them to be kind to those who were struggling and steady in the face of those who were cruel. She told them stories about the world, about pacts and bonds and the old ways, but she never told them about their father. She only told them that they came from strength, even if that strength had been treated poorly. She told them that what the world ignored had a way of becoming what the world could not escape. As they grew, it became harder to hide what they were. By the time Aiden and Lyra were 10 years old, adult wolves in Valehaven had begun to cross the street when they passed, not out of fear exactly, but out of instinct, the way any creature steps back from something it recognizes as above it. By 13, both twins had the kind of presence that filled a room before they even entered it. By 16, a quiet representative from the Solaris Council, the governing body that oversaw all wolf packs in the region, had come to their door. Serafina opened it and looked at the woman on her doorstep with calm, steady eyes. The representative was polite and professional. She explained that the council had been receiving reports from Valehaven for several years, reports of 2 young, unregistered wolves with dominant energy, unlike anything their instruments had recorded in living memory. She said they were not in trouble. She said the council simply needed to understand what they were dealing with. Testing was arranged. It was thorough, and took several days. Aiden sat through it with quiet patience. Lyra sat through it with bright, focused eyes that seemed to be studying the testers more than they were studying her. The results reached the Solaris Council's senior chamber within a week. A dual-born alpha pair, 2 children, born of the same birth, both carrying the full alpha gene, dominant, complete, undiluted. It was not supposed to be possible. The records showed it had last occurred over 300 years ago. There was even an old prophecy about it, written in faded ink in the council's archive. 2 born in hardship, raised in silence, destined to lead what others had abandoned. The council's next grand summit, a gathering of every alpha leader in the region, held once every 5 years, was only 4 months away. By law, a dual-born alpha pair was required to be presented at the summit. It was not optional. Serafina received the formal letter and sat with it at her kitchen table for a long time. Then she folded it neatly, placed it in a drawer, and began making quiet arrangements. She was not afraid. She had spent 18 years preparing for a moment she could not name. Now she could name it. The grand summit was held in a vast hall of pale stone in the heart of the council's territory. Every alpha of significance attended. They came with their betas, and their advisors, and their pride, filling the long curved tables that wrapped around the center stage in a horseshoe shape. There was quiet conversation, and careful posturing, and the subtle tension that always existed when powerful people occupied the same room. Cain Voss arrived with Alara beside him. His pack was strong, his reputation unquestioned. He had not thought much about Serafina in years, or so he told himself. His wolf, however, told a different story. His wolf had never fully settled after that night. There was always something low and persistent in his chest that he had learned to ignore, the way one learns to ignore a door that will not quite close. He took his seat. He made conversation. He waited for the summit to begin. And then the main doors at the far end of the hall opened. 3 people walked in. The woman in the center was not dressed in ceremony or decoration. She wore simple, well-fitted clothes, and walked with the kind of calm that does not need to announce itself. Her silver eyes moved across the room without hurry. She looked like someone who had survived something the room could not imagine, and come out the other side without bitterness, only clarity. On either side of her walked two young people of 18. The boy on her left was tall and composed, with dark eyes that saw everything and gave away very little. The girl on her right had those same silver eyes as her mother, and held herself with the kind of quiet fire that made even experienced alphas shift slightly in their seats. The hall went completely silent. Kane's hands tightened on the edge of the table. He recognized Serafina in the first second. He recognized the pull, that deep, unignorable pull, in the second. And in the third second, he looked at the two young people beside her and understood, with perfect and absolute certainty, what he was looking at. The head of the Solaris Council rose from his chair and addressed the room. He spoke about the rarity of what stood before them. He spoke about the prophecy. He announced, clearly and formally, that Aiden and Lyra Calloway were dual-born alphas, the first in 3 centuries, and that their bloodline traced directly to the Iron Moon Pack. Every head in the room turned toward Kane. He sat perfectly still. His face showed nothing, but underneath that stillness, something in him had broken open in a way that could not be closed again. He approached Serafina later, in one of the corridor spaces outside the main hall. He was careful. He was not the kind of man who begged or broke down in public, or in private either, but something in his voice, when he spoke to her, was different from the way it had been 18 years ago. He said he had made a mistake. He said he had let pride make his decision when he should have let something better lead him. He said he was sorry. Serafina looked at him the way a calm river looks at a stone, not cold, not warm, just steady. She told him that she believed he meant it. She told him that she was glad, for his sake, that he could finally say it. And then she told him, gently and without cruelty, that his sorry did not belong to her anymore. She had already healed. She had already built something. Her life was not waiting for him to correct himself. It had moved on without him a long time ago. She walked back into the hall before he could respond. The Solaris Council applied the old law clearly and without argument. Children born of a rejected and banished mother carried no obligation to the rejecting Alpha's pack. Aiden and Lyra owed Iron Moon nothing. Their future was their own to decide. The council asked the twins where they wished to establish their territory. Aiden spoke first, his voice unhurried and clear. He said they would build something new, not an extension of any existing pack, but something built from a different idea entirely. Lyra added that it would be a place where no one was turned away for being too quiet, too small, or too easy to overlook. The council voted and approved. A new territory was formally chartered. The twins named it Dawnmore. Word spread quickly across every pack in the region. Within months, wolves who had been cast out, forgotten, or pushed to the edges of other packs began to arrive at Dawnmore's borders. They came carefully, unsure of their welcome. They were met at the boundary not by guards with crossed arms, but by people who said, "You are allowed to come in." Serafina was given a title by the council, not as a mate, not as a mother, but as the founding protector of Dawnmore, a title that had not existed before and was created specifically for her. It recognized that what stood before them had not happened by accident. It had been built, slowly and quietly, by one woman's decision to keep going when the world told her she had nothing left. Iron Moon continued. It remained powerful and respected. But in the years that followed, when people sat around fires and told stories about the age they were living in, they did not talk about Iron Moon's latest victories. They talked about the twins who had grown up in a small apartment in a neutral city. They talked about the mother who had crossed a border in the dark with nothing and turned that nothing into a legacy. Some stories end with justice. Some end with forgiveness. This one ended with something quieter and more lasting than either. It ended with a woman who had been told she was not enough, standing at the gate of something she had built with her own hands, watching the future arrive. The moon was full that night. It always seemed to be. And somewhere in the belief of those who watched the sky, the goddess who had started it all those years ago, with one quiet, certain pull, she had known exactly what she was doing.